Tales of the Caballos by William H. White. Today we're diving underground to explore the key cave-forming rock units in New Mexico's Magdalena Group, thanks to a tip from our friends A.V. Adams at Lost Adams Gold. Check them out. So just a little side note on some of the geology that was pointed out by our friends. The Magdalena Group is a stack of ancient rock layers laid down about 300 million years ago when much of New Mexico was covered by a shallow sea. Its limestone and dolomite layers made it a hot spot for hidden caves formed by water slowly dissolving the rock over time. Together, these layers have shaped some of the underground wonders still waiting to be discovered. So next time you're exploring the desert landscape, remember there's a hidden world beneath your feet. The Caballo Mountain cave system is hosted within the Magdalena Group, composed of rock deposited over 300 million years ago. Later, tectonic forces uplifted the rock, enabling the carbonates to dissolve, later forming the caves. Part 4, Chapter 5, Crystal Cave. This story begins around 1980 in the town of Truth or Consequences, New Mexico, and is ongoing as of this writing. For this reason, I'm not including the last names of the participants of this story. Jeremy, who was 9 years old at the time, was deer hunting with his father around an area known as the Palomas Gap in the Caballo Mountains. While they were sitting in a deer stand searching the terrain for animals, Jeremy noticed an opening in the rock formation they were sitting adjacent to. Being an inquisitive lad, Jeremy wiggled through the opening and came into a very large cavern that stretched for about 4,000 feet or more and gently downward into the earth. Jeremy didn't have much time to enjoy his find because his father became upset with the concern for his son's safety, and the incident was soon forgotten by his father. Jeremy, however, didn't forget this newfound cave. Back at school the next day, Jeremy soon recruited 2 friends to help him explore the cavern. John, who was 12, and Otis, who was 15. The date was set for the next Saturday morning. When Saturday came around, the 3 explorers were up early and heading towards the Caballo Mountains. The Rio Grande River was low, so they waded across carrying their bicycles. Then off they went. They were well equipped for this adventure. They had sacks full of candy bars and only one flashlight between the 3 of them. No one was concerned that there were no extra batteries. It was about a 6-mile ride from town to where they wanted to go, but they were young and filled with excitement. They soon arrived at their destination. Jeremy, although the youngest, had the best sense of direction and had little trouble finding the cavern. Within 2 hours, their adventure would really begin. The 3 entered the cavern and began slowly moving to the back while marveling at the marvelous crystals that adorned the passageway. They soon discovered an even easier access into a far larger cavern at the far end, and away they went. The 3 adventurers didn't know it at the time, but they had just entered the fabled inside of the Caballo Mountains. They reported the floor was smooth, and sometimes they walked abreast, 25 feet apart as they adjourned into the bowels of the mountain. Eventually, they began to encounter burials with mummies and skeletons. This development had the effect of terrifying the boys, but now they had little choice but to keep moving in hope that an exit would be found before their flashlight expended its batteries. The boys estimated later that they had walked almost 6 miles, but I had reason to believe that it was closer to 9 miles. The adventure eventually reached an area containing many caskets hastily deposited and stacked. One casket had inadvertently come open, and Jeremy quietly removed a golden goblet from the interior. I have seen this goblet, and it is inscribed Padre Latredo, a Jesuit priest from the 1600s. There's also a river inside this mountain, and only Jeremy had the courage to wade it to get a closer look at the rooms on the other side. Jeremy reported that these rooms were filled with gold bars with a crown emblem on them. This symbol usually meant that this treasure was destined to the coffers of the King of Spain. The Jesuits were thrown out of the New World for their failure to pay the king's taxes. This treasure was likely stashed here to prevent paying those taxes. The flashlight was growing dim and the time was running out for these 3 boys. They had to find a way out soon, or they would surely perish in the dark underworld. Jeremy came to the rescue again. He noticed that there was a breeze coming from one of the passageways and suggested the trio make a run for it down this passage in hope that an exit could truly be found. Once again, Jeremy's luck held up. When the 3 came to the end of the passageway, 3 rocks were moved and out they went into the night air. A road was soon located, and these 3 actually ran back to their bicycles 9 miles away. Upon arriving home, the 3 got into the usual trouble kids do at that age, and they all promised never to go into the mountain again. This is a nice story, however, it does not end here. I first learned of the cave while talking to Otis, the oldest of the 3, but now a hopeless drug addict still living in Truth or Consequences. I became fascinated with the story and soon asked Otis to show me this cave, which he promised to do the next day. When the next day rolled around, Otis was suffering from the perpetual drug hangover that addicts have to endure. Needless to say, he was in no mood to show anybody anything. It took me several attempts before I came to realize that Otis would never show anyone the cave because it was his only source of self-esteem, or simply forgot the location. One of my associates was able to locate John, the 12-year-old who shared their adventures 20 years before. John was helpful, but could not remember where he was at the time. John eventually put my associate in touch with Jeremy. Now, Jeremy was living in Albuquerque at the time and running a small printing company. At first, Jeremy did not want to talk about the cave, but he soon warmed up and began speaking about his experiences. We learned that Jeremy and his girlfriend had been in the cave 5 years prior. His girlfriend had walked into a room full of human skulls and became frightened. They had to leave immediately. Up to this point, Jeremy had shown no interest in the treasure lying beneath the mountain. Little did we know that Jeremy would again show his ability to get what he wanted and disappear without a trace. Jeremy had quietly sold his business, packed his clothes, and vanished with his girlfriend in tow. He made one mistake, however, and this mistake brought him back to the mountain. Jeremy and his girlfriend removed approximately $4 million of gold from the caverns. They had taken it to Mexico, sold it, and headed for the Virgin Islands. Jeremy's mistake was that he only took $4 million worth of gold. After buying a condo and respectable boat to float around in, he gave his relatives much more money than he should have. Jeremy was broke again. I will end the story by saying that Jeremy did come back to the mountain, and this time he took enough wealth to last him for a year or two. I can say no more about Jeremy. Up next is Part 4, Chapter 6, Galagos Hole. Don't forget to like the videos and subscribe to the channel to help us grow. Thank you very much.